Long-time lurker, first-time poster. So I, male, 28, finally met my girlfriend's female 26 parents last Sunday, and honestly, I'm still processing what happened. My girlfriend, let's call her Sarah, and I have been together for about 8 months now. She's amazing, we click on everything, and I've been wanting to meet her family for months. But every time I brought it up, she'd make some excuse like, they're not ready yet, or maybe next month, or whatever. I started wondering if there was something wrong with me, or if she was embarrassed of me or something. My last relationship ended partly because my ex said I was too intense about wanting to fix things, so I've been trying not to push too hard about family stuff. Anyway, Sarah finally agreed to Sunday dinner at her parents' house the week before. She seemed really nervous about it though, like way more nervous than normal. She kept changing what we were going to bring and asking me weird questions about what I'd do if her family was a lot, her words. I figured every family has their quirks, you know. My parents are pretty chill conflict avoiders, so I thought maybe hers were just more loud or something. So we show up, and her dad, let's call him Tom, and mom, Linda, seem nice enough at first. Normal house, normal dinner setup. But then we sit down and Tom immediately launches into this story about how, when Sarah was 8, she had this massive bathroom accident at a grocery store, and apparently there was poop everywhere and she cried for like an hour. I'm thinking, okay, weird choice for a first meeting story, but maybe he's just nervous. But then Linda jumps in with more details about how Sarah was sobbing in the car afterward and how they had to throw away her clothes and shoes. And I'm looking at Sarah and she's getting redder and redder, but she's just kind of sitting there, not saying anything. Then Tom tells another story about some period disaster Sarah had at a school dance when she was like 14. I mean, graphic details about blood on her dress and how she hid in the bathroom. And Linda adds stuff about how Sarah called crying and begged them to bring different clothes. This went on for over an hour. Just story after story of the most embarrassing shit from Sarah's childhood and teenage years. Sarah kept quietly asking them to maybe share different stories, you know, like, Dad, maybe tell him about when I won that essay contest, or whatever. But Tom would just wave her off, saying stuff like, he needs to know what he's getting into, and Linda would add another humiliating detail. They were treating her obvious discomfort like it was part of the entertainment. I grew up with parents who always said talking straight about problems fixes everything, so I'm sitting there thinking this is just not normal family humor. This felt mean. Sarah was obviously uncomfortable, and they were completely ignoring what she was asking for. So we're driving home, and Sarah asks how dinner went. I hesitated, but then I told her honestly that her parents made me really uncomfortable with how they talked about her. Her hands got all tight on the steering wheel, and she asked what exactly bothered me. I explained that they completely ignored how obviously uncomfortable she was, and that it felt more like they were making fun of her than welcoming me. Well, that was apparently the wrong thing to say. Sarah got super defensive, saying that's just how her family jokes around, and I'm being too sensitive. I tried to explain that I wasn't attacking them, I was trying to stick up for her. But she said if I can't handle her family's sense of humor, then maybe I can't handle her family at all. Then she canceled our family dinner that was planned for this weekend, saying she needs time to think about whether I can actually fit with how her family works. She basically gave me an ultimatum about whether this relationship can work if I have a problem with them. I mean, I get that every family is different, but am I crazy for thinking that was weird? I wasn't trying to cause problems, I thought I was being supportive. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. I really care about Sarah, and I don't want to lose her over this, but I also can't pretend I'm okay with watching her get embarrassed like that. Am I the idiot for telling my girlfriend her parents made me uncomfortable? Edit. Since so many people are asking, no, I didn't say anything during dinner itself. I was trying not to make things worse and figured Sarah knew her family better than I did. Maybe I should have spoken up in the moment, but honestly, I was just shocked that it kept going. To those asking if this is normal family teasing, I felt pretty sure it crossed a line during dinner, but I'm second-guessing myself now based on Sarah's reaction. My family doesn't really do the embarrassing stories thing, so maybe I'm just not used to it. But it felt different than normal joking around, like they genuinely weren't picking up on or caring about how uncomfortable she was getting. Now for the first update, things got worse since my last post, way worse. I'm honestly not even sure where to start with this mess, but I need to get it all out somewhere because I feel like I'm losing my mind. So remember how Sarah canceled our family dinner and said she needed time to think? Well, we've barely talked this week, which has been rough. I kept replaying that dinner at her parents' house, trying to figure out if I was being too sensitive or whatever. A bunch of you said her parents sounded toxic and that I wasn't wrong for being uncomfortable. But honestly, I was starting to second guess everything. Anyway, our mutual friend Jake was having his birthday party this weekend, and Sarah said we should still go together. Things were weird between us, but I figured maybe being around other people would help us get back to normal. Or at least help me figure out if we even had a normal to get back to, you know. So we're at this party, and I'm talking to a group of people, including this woman Kelly who works in real estate. Sarah went to get drinks, and Kelly starts talking about how frustrating it's been trying to rent out office spaces lately. Then she mentions this specific building downtown, and I'm like, wait, that's where Sarah works. So I'm like, oh yeah, my girlfriend works there actually. Kelly looks confused and tells me that building's been completely empty for like 6 months now. She explains there's been renovation issues and code problems, and literally nobody has been able to work there since last fall. I'm standing there trying to process this while other people at the table start asking follow-up questions about what Sarah actually does for work. And here's the thing, I realized I couldn't really answer them. Like, I know she says she works in marketing, but when people ask specifics about her company or what projects she's working on, I had nothing. She's always been kind of vague about work stuff, but I figured some people just don't like talking about their jobs, you know? My last girlfriend used to complain about hers constantly, so I thought it was nice that Sarah didn't. When Sarah came back with drinks, the whole table had gone quiet, and I could tell she picked up on the weird energy. Someone tried to change the subject, but it was super awkward. Sarah kept looking at me like she was trying to figure out what I knew. The car ride home was Jesus. I don't even know how to describe it. I started off trying to be gentle about it, like maybe there was some explanation. I asked about the building being empty and if maybe her office had moved or something. She gave me this story about renovations, but it didn't really make sense with what Kelly had said. I wasn't trying to interrogate her, but I kept asking questions because nothing was adding up. Like, where does she actually go during the day? What does she actually do for work? And she just broke down crying and admitted she's been lying about having a job for months. But wait, it gets worse. After she admitted about the job thing, she just kept talking. Like, once she started, she couldn't stop. She told me she never actually graduated college either. She was 1 credit short and just never finished, too ashamed to tell anyone. So she's been pretending to be a college graduate with a marketing job for our entire relationship. I'm sitting there trying to process that my girlfriend has been lying about basically her entire life situation, and I don't even know what to say. Like, how do you respond to that? I asked how she's been paying for stuff, and she got really quiet and said her parents help out sometimes, which I'm realizing now probably means they've been paying for everything. I tried to be supportive. I really did. I told her we could figure it out together and that I understood why she felt ashamed. But I was also kind of freaking out because, like, what else has she been lying about? If she's made up her job and her degree, how much of what I think I know about her is even real? The next morning she was completely panicked, like pacing around the apartment, checking her phone constantly, barely eating. She kept saying she couldn't believe she told me everything and that her family was going to be so upset. Then she called her mom crying and told her the whole thing. I only heard Sarah's side of the conversation, but it was a lot of, I know, I'm sorry, and I don't know what to do now. Her mom apparently told her to come home for the day to talk things through. But here's where it gets really weird. That afternoon, Sarah's mom, Linda, called me directly. She asked if we could meet for coffee right away because there were things I needed to know before I made any decisions about the relationship. Her voice sounded really stressed and urgent. So I meet Linda at this coffee shop, and she's clearly been crying. She starts off by thanking me for being patient with Sarah and says she knows this whole situation is confusing. Then she tells me something huge about how Sarah has been having memory problems. Linda explains that Sarah's grandmother had early onset dementia, and they've been noticing scary similarities, like Sarah forgetting recent conversations, getting confused about familiar places, struggling to keep her stories straight. She says that's part of why Sarah's been lying about work and school, because she's genuinely having trouble remembering what she's told people and when. But then Linda tells me something that really freaked me out. Remember those embarrassing childhood stories from dinner? The ones that made me so uncomfortable? Linda says they weren't just random family humor. They were memory tests. She explains that they deliberately included wrong details in the stories to see if Sarah would correct them. Like they said, she cried for an hour after the bathroom accident when it was actually just a few minutes. Or they said it happened at a grocery store when it was really at a restaurant. Sarah should have remembered and corrected those mistakes about her own childhood, but she didn't. Linda says when Sarah didn't catch any of the wrong details, it confirmed their worst fears about her memory getting worse. She started crying while telling me this and said they've been so scared and don't know what to do. I'm sitting there realizing that I didn't just witness awkward family oversharing. I witnessed a disguised medical evaluation. Sarah's parents were testing her brain function right in front of me, and she failed. Linda says they've tried to talk to Sarah about seeing a doctor, but she has panic attacks whenever they bring up anything medical. So they've been trying to monitor her condition indirectly while still letting her feel independent. That's why they help pay for her stuff, but let her pretend she has a job. They're scared of what will happen if they force her to face reality about what might be happening to her brain. I mean, I don't even know how to process this. My girlfriend might have early dementia at 26 and has been lying about her entire life for months. Her parents have been enabling the lies while secretly running medical tests disguised as family bonding time, and I've been completely oblivious to all of it. Linda begged me not to abandon Sarah when she needs support the most, but she also said I deserved to know what I was getting into before making any commitments. She gave me this whole speech about how much Sarah cares about me and how I'm the first person who's made her really happy in years. I feel terrible for how I reacted to that dinner now. I thought her parents were being cruel and embarrassing her for no reason, but they were actually terrified parents trying to assess their daughter's deteriorating brain function. No wonder Sarah got so defensive when I criticized them. I don't know what to do with any of this information. Like, how do you date someone who might have dementia? How do you trust someone who's lied about everything? But also, how do you abandon someone who's literally losing their mind and can't help it? Sarah texted me asking how the coffee meeting went, but I haven't responded yet. I have no idea what to say or how to move forward. This is so much bigger than just family dinner awkwardness or even lying about jobs. This is about her whole future potentially being... I can't even think about it. I guess I'm wondering if anyone has dealt with anything like this. Like dating someone with memory issues or finding out someone you care about has been lying because of medical problems. I feel like I'm in way over my head here. Edit. Since people are asking about the timeline, Sarah and I started dating about 8 months ago, so she's potentially been lying about work for most or all of our relationship, maybe even from the very beginning if the building issues started before we met. I keep trying to remember if there were other signs I missed, but honestly, everything feels questionable now. To those asking if early dementia is even possible at 26, that's what I thought too, but apparently her grandmother was diagnosed in her early 30s. Linda showed me some stuff on her phone about genetic early onset dementia, and it's rare but definitely real. The fact that it runs in their family makes it more likely. I feel sick thinking about it. Now for the second update. Things got so much worse. I don't know how to write this, but I need to get it out somewhere because I feel like I'm going insane. You were right about Sarah's parents hiding something serious, but nobody could have predicted how bad this would get. I wish I'd never found out any of it. So after that coffee meeting with Linda where she told me about the dementia stuff, I spent like 2 weeks I don't even know, researching early onset dementia, trying to figure out what to do, basically having a complete mental breakdown. I mean, how do you process that? Your girlfriend might be losing her mind and has been lying about everything because of it. I kept going back and forth between feeling terrible for her and feeling like I couldn't trust anything anymore. Like, was any of our relationship real if she's been making stuff up the whole time? But then I'd remember that it's not really her fault if her brain is literally deteriorating, you know? Sarah could tell something was different with me, though. I was trying to act normal, but I guess I was being weird about it because she started asking if I was okay all the time. And honestly, I didn't know what to say because her mom made me promise not to tell Sarah about our conversation. So I'd just say I was stressed about work or whatever. After like a week of this, Sarah said she needed some space to figure things out. She could tell I was acting strange, and she said it was making her anxious. She asked if I wanted to break up, and I told her no, but I think she could sense that I was keeping something from her. During that same time, We barely talked. She'd text occasionally, but it was just surface level stuff. I kept wanting to bring up the doctor thing, but I didn't know how. Like, how do you tell someone you think they might have dementia, especially when they panic about medical stuff? I finally decided I was going to talk to her this weekend. I had this whole plan about how to gently suggest maybe seeing someone just for general health stuff. I was so nervous about it, but I figured we couldn't keep avoiding this forever. Then Tuesday morning, I got a call from the hospital. Sarah had been in a car accident. Single car, no other vehicles involved. She'd driven off the road on a familiar stretch near the mall, a road with a sharp curve that she'd driven literally hundreds of times. Except, she was going the wrong way. The police said it looked like she got confused about which direction she was supposed to be going. There were no skid marks or anything suggesting she tried to correct it. Just drove straight into that concrete barrier going the wrong way on a road she knew by heart. I still can't really process it. They said she died instantly at least. But I keep thinking about how scared she must have been in those last moments when she realized she was lost on a road she'd driven her whole life. When I got to the hospital, her parents were already there. They'd apparently been called first since they were listed as emergency contacts. Linda was crying, but Tom just looked empty. They told me the funeral arrangements were already being handled and they'd let me know about services. I asked about going back to our apartment to get some of her things for the service, maybe pick up my stuff too. That's when Tom told me they'd already secured the apartment for insurance purposes. I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. Turns out they'd changed the locks the day after she died. When I showed up the next morning to grieve and grab my clothes and laptop and stuff, I couldn't get in. The building manager said Sarah's parents had legal right to secure the unit since they were co-signers on the lease. I called Tom and he said they needed to protect Sarah's belongings and handle her estate quickly for insurance reasons. But when I asked when I could get my stuff, he said they'd already packed everything up and taken it to storage. My furniture, my electronics, my clothes, everything. They offered me like $800 cash and said it was what Sarah would have wanted and that they'd tried to estimate fair value. $800 for my couch, my TV, my computer, all my clothes, everything I owned. I tried to argue, but Tom said they'd written everything down for legal purposes, and this was the easiest way to handle it. I think they knew I was too messed up about Sarah dying to fight them properly. And honestly, I was so destroyed, I couldn't even think straight about practical stuff. But looking back now, they got me out of there really fast. They took all my stuff and changed the locks right away. I think they didn't want me finding medical records or notes about her memory problems. The memorial service was this past Saturday. It was packed. Sarah had so many friends from high school and college and work people. Well, people who thought she worked. It was beautiful and terrible, and I was barely holding it together. Her parents got up to speak, and that's when everything went completely sideways. Tom started talking about how Sarah was in perfect health and had everything going for her. How the accident was a completely random tragedy that no one could have seen coming. Then Linda took the mic and started emphasizing how there were no warning signs and no health concerns whatsoever. She talked about how Sarah was thriving in her career and looking forward to the future, and how no one could have predicted this. I'm sitting there listening to them completely rewrite history, making her sound like this perfectly healthy young woman when they literally told me 2 weeks ago that they suspected she had dementia. They were acting like the accident was some random twist of fate instead of what it actually was. Then came the open mic portion where people could share memories. I wasn't planning to say anything, but listening to her parents lie like that made me feel sick. So I got up. I started by saying how much I loved Sarah and how she was always so thoughtful about making sure she remembered important things. I talked about her detailed notes system and how she'd write everything down because she cared so much about not forgetting anything special. I mentioned how she'd sometimes ask me to remind her about recent conversations because she valued hearing things twice. How she'd take longer routes sometimes when driving because she was always thinking about other people and wanted to make sure she didn't miss anything important. Her parents started looking really uncomfortable. Tom tried to interrupt, but I kept going. I shared more specific examples of her being thoughtful about memory stuff, how she'd sometimes seem surprised by places we'd been before because she was always noticing new details. By the time I finished, you could tell people were starting to realize something was off. Sarah's aunt came up to me afterward asking about the memory issues I'd mentioned. She said nobody had ever told her about Sarah having any kind of problems remembering things. Other family members joined the conversation. That's when it became clear that her parents had hidden this from everyone, not just me. Sarah's uncle started asking pointed questions about why they hadn't mentioned any concerns about her driving or living alone. Her aunt directly confronted Tom and Linda about not getting Sarah proper medical help. She pointed out that Sarah's grandmother had early dementia and asked why they didn't recognize the signs. Other relatives started connecting the dots about how Sarah's accident was probably related to confusion, not just bad luck. It got really ugly really fast. Multiple family members accused Tom and Linda of causing Sarah's death by enabling her condition instead of getting help. Her aunt said they'd learned nothing from what happened with the grandmother and just repeated the same mistakes. Several relatives said they were cutting contact completely. They felt like Tom and Linda had chosen protecting their own image over protecting Sarah's life. Tom and Linda were furious. After most people left, they cornered me in the parking lot. Tom said they were considering legal action against me for slander and defamation. Linda was crying, saying I'd destroyed their family with lies. But Sarah's aunt overheard this and came back over. She told Tom and Linda that they were responsible for Sarah's death, and she never wanted to see them again. A couple other relatives heard and backed her up. Her aunt thanked me for telling the truth. She said the family deserved to know what really happened and that Sarah deserved better than having her death covered up. Tom and Linda drove off without saying goodbye to anyone. Threatening me just made them look worse to the family members who were still there. I keep thinking about how if they'd found some way to get Sarah help despite her panic attacks about medical stuff, she might still be alive. If they'd somehow convinced her to stop driving or found a way around her resistance to doctors, she wouldn't have been driving confused on roads she couldn't navigate anymore. But I also keep thinking about how I knew something was wrong for 2 weeks and didn't do anything either. Like maybe if I'd pushed harder about the doctor thing instead of waiting for the right moment to bring it up. I don't know what happens now. I lost my girlfriend and all my stuff, and I'm pretty sure her parents hate me forever. But at least her family knows the truth about what really happened. Even though it doesn't bring her back or anything, I miss her so much. Even with all the lies and confusion, I really loved her. And I keep wondering what she would have been like if her brain hadn't been betraying her. If we could have figured out how to deal with the medical stuff together instead of everyone hiding from it. Sorry this is so long and messy. I'm not sleeping much and everything still feels surreal. Thank you to everyone who warned me that her parents were hiding something serious. You were right, but I wish you hadn't been.